So you're so frustrated that any revolution will do, huh? Is that what it's all about? Because this is what they want right here. This is what they're hoping for down at the Wall Street protests or whatever, Occupy, whatever, Poland or Wall Street or whatever the hell it is these communists want to do. This is what they're hoping for. They're hoping to see useful idiots with their Gadsden flags running down there to hold hands and sing Kumbaya with them while they're fighting for socialism and communism. Is that what you believe in? I mean, really, is that what it's coming to? I mean, it's coming to the point where you're just so frustrated, you're so, angry at what the elites have done to this country that you'll join anybody's revolution, including a communist one. Well, my opinion on the whole matter, folks, is if you're motivated enough to attend their protest, I think you're all motivated enough to attend your own protests, right? Think about it. The Tea Party went on and on and on until it got infiltrated, right? Okay, so we had the Tea Party. The Tea Party was able to get rid of a lot of these neocons, the lesser of two evil situation where the inside the Beltway mentality, these so-called Republicans got so comfortable and so corrupt that they thought that the people of this country were just going to keep re-electing them into office. And what happened was it finally reached the point where people had enough. And they went, the only language that these folks are going to understand is unemployment. And that worked. That really shook them up. Okay? But now we're entering a new, more dangerous phase, in my opinion. Okay? We're getting this. We're getting this situation where I'm hearing people talk about, well, the protesters down on Wall Street, they're really not that bad. I mean, they're talking about the same issues that we are. Well, let me tell you something, folks. These communists, these socialists, these anarchists, these Marxists are absolutely not fighting for what you believe in. Okay? Take a look at their ideology. You'll see what I mean. Speaking of, let's take a look. All right, what do we have today? Well, let's see now. Well, all those yellow and black signs that you see the protesters carrying, the reason they're yellow and black, as you can see here, yellow and black, is that those signs are representing the answercoalition.org. And I'm going to provide the links, of course, you know that. And see, what is answercoalition.org all about? I mean, they're down on Wall Street right now. Well, here it is right here. This is their website. This is not my website. It's not your website. It's their website. And what it says here is what they're interested in for the United States is Cuba's revolutionary sample. Let's scroll down. There is an alternative. See, there's an alternative. And what the alternative is that they want for the people of the United States of America is, let's see now, let's scroll down here. Well, I'll let you read it. But anyway, the bottom line is, join the party for socialism, okay, and liberation, for this free class where we will discuss the myths and the facts about socialism and the legacy of the Cuban Revolution. So there you go. By the way, folks, in case you're interested, today is October 14th, 2011, and they're giving away free socialism classes when you attend their protests. So there you go. That's what you got down on Wall Street. If you all want to go running down there to join forces with communists and socialists who want to bring Castro's communism to the United States, you can attend free socialism classes and they'll indoctrinate you for free. So there's that you're going to get involved in. What else do we have here? Okay, I'm going to provide the link for this. This is the Boston Occupy protest, and what it is that they're spitting on our troops. Right there, look, Coast Guard member spit on near Occupy Boston tents. And what it is that this was a Coast Guard officer, and a female at that. Okay, because you know how all these liberals and Marxists and socialists and communists, they always say how they're fighting for women's rights. So there you go. They're spitting on our troops. And where in history have we seen that before? Spitting on troops, rioting with the police, yada, yada, yada. So, anyway, I'll let you look at that. They're spitting on troops. What else do I have for you? Anyway, speaking about spitting on troops, okay, what this is all reminiscent of, as you can probably guess, is the 1960s. And it looks like the radical left is trying to create the firestorm of the 1960s once again. This is so that they can do the final push to collapse this country, to destroy it completely, and to implement full-blown communism. Because as you may have guessed, folks, whenever it comes to these socialist, communist, Marxist revolutions, if you listen closely to what they say, they never say that socialism and communism and tyranny is coming. No, 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 no. They don't describe it that way. What they will say is that they're fighting for women's rights. They're fighting for the poor. They're going to bring about democracy. There's that word, right? They're going to bring about democracy and freedom and all the rest of it. And just like the pigs in Animal Farm who told the rest of the animals this, the animals got amped up. They really got jacked up over it. And so, as you know, the animals in Animal Farm overthrew the farmer and killed him, and then the pigs took over. And as I've mentioned before in my other videos, what came after Animal Farm? Well, what they got was 1984, George Orwell's 1984, and that's what this country is about to come under. Okay? Because the way I see it, folks, this generation has got one last good fight left in them. And my message to you is use it wisely. And when I say fight, of course, I mean non-violently. Okay, I do not advocate violence in any way, shape, or manner. Okay, if it can be avoided. And what my advice to you is, control your emotions. Okay, people who who let their emotions spiral out of control, more often than not, make bad decisions. Okay, and sometimes when it's a major decision, you know, the kind that affect the entire country, a lot of times it turns out to be a catastrophic decision. You know, probably the people in Russia, right, went through the same thing in October 1917, the Red October. Okay, and prior to that, there was probably a whole bunch of Russian folks back then that went, man, you know, this might not be too bad. These communists are promising us democracy, and they're promising us freedom, and they're promising us equality, and they're promising us women's rights. I mean, all these great things. And so after the smoke cleared from the Russian Revolution, what they got was they got hoodwinked, and then they got put into gulags. And then they got murdered to the tune of 30 million of them. Okay, but prior to that, they didn't want to believe it. What they want to believe is euphoria. That's what people want to believe in. And this is what we're seeing. We're right in the middle of this situation, folks. Okay? We're in this change, right? There's that word again, change. Yeah, exactly. The 1960s. That was the generation that rioted with the police and they brought about change. Yeah, where have we heard that before? Kind of like hope and change. How's that hope and change working out for you folks? You know what I'm saying? And what's occurring is they're trying their best. What they've been doing is trying to blend in and blur the lines, right? And make it look like all these communists and socialists are not that bad. That, you know, actually they're kind of like you in many ways. You know what I'm saying? That they're it's kind of like, you know, when you see where is it? Let me show this to you real quick. Let me scroll down here. Oh shucks, what did I do with it? Be with you in just a second. Okay, right here. The map, right? The electoral map. Notice how it's now red states and blue states. Now, have you noticed that now all Republicans, conservative, libertarians, whatever you want to call them, they're now described as reds, red states. And the communists, the socialists, the anarchists, the Marxists, the liberals, whatever name you want to give them, they're now blues. Who was it that came up with that shit? And what this does is this fusion, this blending, you know, it's like taking all these political concepts and putting them in a food blender and blending them so closely together that the ordinary sheeple cannot tell the difference between the two. So now conservatives, libertarians, Republicans, they're now reds. You see what I'm saying? This is the game that they play. That they're really not that bad. And let me show you something else what I'm talking about. Let's see. What else do I have for you? All right, let's see. All right. Here's what's going on, folks. This is Helen Keller. You probably may not know the name unless you're a communist or a socialist. Well, that's what she was. She was a communist. Now, of course, when you read her description, they're going to say she's a fighter for human rights and women's rights and disabled rights and this right and that right and all the other. No, no, no. She was a radical leftist. And you know I'm going to provide all these links. Well, guess what? Now they're printing communists on United States currency. Here is the coin of Alabama. Now I want you guys to check your pockets. See if you have an Alabama quarter. I think that's what this is. But there she is on the Alabama coin, right? And see what they're doing? They're normalizing communism. They're normalizing socialism and anarchism and this ism and that ism. And now they're printing them on our currency. Okay, let's see what else we have. Sorry, this is not properly done up here in good order. It's kind of all over the map, but anyway. So that's her. She's on our currency now. They've also erected statues to her in the Capitol Rotunda of Alabama, of all places, right? What else do we have? Here's a video. I'll provide the links for this, of course. And this is now statues being erected in San Francisco, and this is to what they call the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Now, if you don't know what that is, what that actually is was the Abraham Lincoln Brigade was a bunch of American communists. And these communists went over to Spain to overthrow the Spanish government, right? And I don't know about you, but I thought the last time that civilians took up arms to overthrow a government, that was pretty much called, what's that name again? Terrorism. Yeah. So, there it is in San Francisco, is that they're going to, not going to, they have erected statues to these communist terrorists who went overseas to overthrow the Spanish government in the 1930s. And now they're building statues to communists in the United States of America. I'll provide the links, of course. So there's that. What else do we have for you today? Let me see. Anyway, while we're on the subject of building statues to communists, that's San Francisco. Here's Canada. You guys might remember this one. And here's this big old statue, chrome-plated or whatever the hell it is, statue of Lenin. Lenin, you know the Lenin and Stalin, you know, that murdered 30 million. Well, there it is. That's in Canada. That's 2010. And on top of them, what they did was they built, what do you call it, Chairman Mao. Because you know how it is with communists, they're actually cute. That's how they describe this. It's kind of cute and funny. You know, when you have two genocidal communists, killers that murdered millions upon millions of people. I mean, you should build statues like this in their honor so that children, your children and your grandchildren can worship them and look at them as being cute. I mean, you know how mass graves are. They're kind of cute. So you got that. I'll provide the links. While we're at it, why not? We're still in the Bay Area, well, we're going back to the Bay Area on this video. Anyway, here's a news article, and this is where they honored Jerry Adams, you know, the leader of the terrorist organization called the IRA. Well, they actually named a street after him. And you'd say to yourself, why would they do that in the United States, over in San Francisco? I mean, why would you want your children to walk past a sign where they exploded bombs and turned little kids and women into hamburger meat when their bombs exploded? Well, the reason is, as you probably guessed by now, the Bay Area is extremely left-wing, and that's what the Irish Republican Army was struggling for, socialism. So I'll provide that link too. Oh, and of course, anyway, I'll throw this in the pot anyway. They also built a statue with all these, quote, humanitarians. And of course, they've got Helen Keller. Yeah, that's in the Bay Area also, as well as other folks. What else do we have? And, you know, we did Canada. Why not do the UK? Here's an article here where you've got the Archbishop of Canterbury, and this was the 11th of October, and he welcomed, what do you call his name? Robert Mugabe, you know, the self-proclaimed Marxist that murdered all sorts of people, burned them alive in their houses, destroyed all the crops, and created a starvation crisis. Yeah, that him. Well, he was in London last week, the 11th of October, and he got welcomed by the Archbishop of Canterbury. I was just kind of wondering why, what do you call it, the Metropolitan Police or MI5 or even MI6 didn't arrest him, you know, for human rights violations, and they could have just flown him over to The Hague. But he's a Marxist, so we don't arrest those folks. Anyway, let me see. Getting back to the point, folks, you know, these demonstrations and stuff, okay? This is very reminiscent of the 1960s. How did this happen? Well, it happened because of what the communists and the socialists were doing. They organized the protests of the 1960s. They financed them. They provocateured them. They did all this stuff. I remember watching one documentary about the protests of the 1960s. And one of the things they said, which was kind of interesting, was they're talking about the riot at the 1968 Democratic Convention and how they rioted with the police. And they named the provocateurs who did it. And their names escape me right at this moment. But anyway, they asked them, why did you do that? Why did you riot with the police? And you know what the answer was? To make the police look bad. There you go. So rioting with the police is a communist technique. Okay? This is what they do. And you would say to yourself, why would they do that? Well, because whenever people look at these radical leftists as to what they actually stand for, people will say, wait a minute, what is it you stand for again? And like I showed you with the answercoalition.org, they're standing for communism. And when the gullible public, or as they called them back in the 1960s, the silent majority, right? Whenever they clue in on that, they're not going to give their support. They're going to go, no, wait a minute now, whoa. No, that's okay. I kind of like living in freedom. I kind of like having money. I like having cars. I like having houses and flat screen TV, you know, all this type of stuff. And so the majority of the public are not sympathetic to communists and socialists and anarchists. So how is it they can manipulate the public into feeling sorry for them and to being outraged and taking their side? Well, guess what they do? They riot with the police. This is a communist technique, is rioting and fighting with the police. So, take heed, right? Because if you noticed, with the Tea Partiers, right? A lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans, a lot of libertarians at the Tea Party, whatever word you want to give them, well, they didn't riot with the police. They're still able to protest. They're still able to get rid of the neocons, right? But no riot with the police, okay? Well, this is not how the communists and socialists work, okay? They deliberately start confrontations with the cops. And another thing is, going back to the 1960s, which is where all this crap started, have you guys ever noticed that they always harken back to the 1960s? The 1960s were so exciting. They were euphoric. They were the generation that brought about change. There's that tyrannical word again. They did all these things, okay? Well, how is it they did this? Well, let's take a look. Well, one of the main characters that brought about this was a guy called Spock. And no, he didn't have pointy ears and he wasn't on Star Trek. His name was Benjamin Spock. And let's take a look at him. I'm going to provide the link. And what it was let's take a look at Spock here. Let me scroll down. I'm going to let you read this on your own, but let me scroll down here real quick. Let me see. Okay. Spock was the People's Party, very communist sounding. The People's Party candidate in 1972 presidential election with a platform that called for free medical care. Does that sound familiar? The repeal of victimless crime, right? I'm guessing that would be drugs or anything else they decide. Including the legalization of abortion. There we go. Legalize abortion, homosexuality, and of course, Marijuana. Yeah. What was it Timothy Leary said from the 1960s? Tune in, turn off, and drop out. You know, Mr. Druggy. That's right. That's their plan for America, is the dumbing down of America. Get fucked up on drugs, be dumb, be uneducated, and drop out. Okay? So this is what Mr. Spock was doing, but what it was he wrote a book on how to raise kids. Okay? And the World War II generation, a lot of them, the parents of the World War II generation that have what we now know as the hippie generation, the Woodstock generation, well, they read his book and they took it to heart. And basically what the book was about was, do not bring your children up in a conservative manner. Let them run wild. Be liberal. Well, so they did. And what happened was, they grew up, and then along came the 1960s. And this is what Joseph McCarthy was trying to warn the country about. This is what the director of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, was trying to stop, was the communist takeover of the country. Well, they basically spayed and neutered anybody who got in their way, and next thing you know, we got the explosion of the 1960s and all the radical agendas which Mr. Spock fought for: abortion, homosexuality, and marijuana. Well, let's start, with abortion. These bastards spat on our troops in the 1960s and they called them baby killer. Really? Who's the real baby killer? These fuckers here killed 50 million babies through abortion. I mean, they really did kill babies, right? Okay? So, Mr. Spock and all his ilk, this is what they brought to America, was abortion, check, we got that. Homosexuality and the gay agenda, we got that, especially now in the military. Marijuana, oh yeah, we're awash with that shit. Let's see, and the withdrawal of American troops from foreign countries in the 70s. Of course, he was against the. Let me say, in 1972, Spock, his vice president Julius Hopkins, the Socialist Workers Party presidential candidate. There you go, and the Social Workers Party, blah 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 blah, against the Vietnam War. Have you ever noticed, that with radical leftists, they talk that trash? Oh, it was an illegal war. Really? And whenever communists invade countries, they never say the same thing about communists. They never protest communist invasions. They never protest communist takeovers of the United States. It's always America that's at fault. It's always the American soldier that's the baby killer and doing terrible things, right? Rather than looking at the communists. Okay, the Vietnam was an illegal war. Really? So North Vietnam invaded South Vietnam when the Soviet Union and China and all the rest of them financed the Viet Cong with weapons and money and missiles and bombs and all the rest of it. Did they ever once call that an illegal war? No, of course not. No, you saw Jane Fonda over there pointing anti-aircraft guns at our troops. Right? See how they think? The apologists for America. America must be the one to apologize to all these dictatorships around the world, to all these socialist regimes and communist countries all around the world. We have to apologize to them. We have to hang our head in shame. We need to turn over our troops to international court. Okay, this is what I'm saying, folks. Guys, get away from this crap. Okay, that's the message of this video, right? Stay away from it. The American people have every right to be upset. Matter of fact, they have a right to be furious. Okay? Folks should be out there with pitchforks and torches. Hell, I even think I saw Glenn Beck start a collection of pitchforks before they forced him off the air. Right? But this is not the way to go. Joining all these communists and socialists and anarchists and all the rest of it as bad news, folks.